welcome to today's Lunch and Learn brought to you by YMCA Employment and Immigrant Services of Niagara. We are here to talk about a topic that is not only deeply important, but also strategically powerful: disability inclusion in the workplace. Across Canada, over 6.2 million people, more than 22% of the population, identify as having a disability. That number is expected to grow as our population ages and as more individuals feel empowered to self-identify. And yet, many of these individuals continue to face barriers to employment, advancement, and full participation in the workforce. This is not just a matter of fairness, it is a missed opportunity. Research consistently shows that inclusive workplaces are more innovative, resilient, and engaged. Companies that prioritize diversity and inclusion report higher levels of employee satisfaction, stronger brand loyalty, and increased financial performance over the long term. So today, we're not just talking about what is right, we're talking about what is smart. Whether you're just beginning this journey or looking to deepen your efforts, today's conversation will offer practical insight and meaningful steps towards building a stronger and more inclusive workforce. So, on behalf of my team, thank you for being here and for being part of this important dialogue. My name is Mishka Balsam, and I will be your host today. But before we get started, I just wanted to make you aware, if you wish to enable live transcript, you can find that option on your Zoom screen. If you're running into any technical challenges, if I could ask you to either contact us directly or utilize the chat function, and one of my colleagues will get back to you immediately. Please know that this session is recorded and will be made available right after this Lunch and Learn ends. But before we begin, I want to highlight our sponsor. Our Lunch and Learn series is proudly sponsored by the YMCA Employment and Immigrant Services of Niagara, a steadfast partner in our sessions. Their support is invaluable, offering employment programs that assist job seekers at all levels and providing extensive employment services for employers. And now, without further ado, let's hear from Iris Corrales with YMCA of Niagara. Iris, over to you.
Great. Thank you, Mishka, for that lovely and warm introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. So excited to be here with you all as we listen and we learn on this very important topic. The YMCA of Niagara and Immigrant Services very much appreciates the work that the GNCC does in our community here in Niagara, and we are so pleased to sponsor these sessions. As Misha already stated, we work with job seekers and employers here in Niagara. And over the years, we've fine-tuned our skills and our services to be just that expert in helping you find that right employee. Or looking for that right employee. And if you already found that right employee, make sure to ask us about the Canada-Ontario Job Grant, which is a program that we offer here at the Y that can help with upskilling or training your staff. So if you already found that great employee, but maybe they need a specific certification or just a little bit more training in this specific area, we'd be happy to have a conversation about how the Canada-Ontario Job Grant can help. We do have 3 offices, one in Niagara Falls, one in St. Catharines, and one in Thorold. So feel free to reach out to any of those locations and we'd be happy to meet with you. Always excited to meet with job seekers or employers and sit down and develop a customized plan for how we can help here at the Y. So thank you so much for this opportunity to speak, and I very much look forward to this presentation.
Iris, thank you so very much for being with us and being also the power behind our Lunch and Learn series. And for all of you who are listening, we have heard from so many of our members and businesses and organizations across Niagara that have taken advantage of the Canada-Ontario Job Grant, and it has really strengthened their team. So I think if you have a chance to look at it and want to provide some professional development and skill advancements for your team, specific members or number of team members, please contact Iris or anyone on her team. It really can make a difference to your organization. And we hope the same when we look at today's webinar. We have with us an expert on this particular topic, and we are joined and fortunate to be joined by Kiersten Smith, who is a passionate advocate for inclusive employment with a diverse background in educational, nonprofit and nonprofit organizations. Her expertise spans training and development, program coordination, curriculum development, and the facilitation of strong community relationships. Currently serving as a disability awareness trainer with the OCTC team at Auden, she is enthusiastic about increasing disability inclusion in Ontario's workforce. Previously, Kiersten has successfully led several pre-employment and skills development programs in the nonprofit sector, empowering adult learners through education and skill development. She holds a degree in organizational leadership from Wilfrid Laurier University and certifications in American Sign Language and Deaf Studies. She's committed to fostering accessible, inclusive workplaces through training, community relations, and advocacy. Kiersten, we're so glad to have you with us. So thank you. And if technology is not her best friend, she has brought with her a colleague of hers. We have with us also Liz Gosse, a dedicated disability awareness trainer with extensive experience in curriculum development, training facilitation, and fostering inclusive environments for diverse populations. In her current role with Auden, she partners with business to promote disability-inclusive hiring practices through impactful training and tailored supports. So Liz, if everything doesn't go according to plan, we will count on you to pull us through. So thank you also for being with us. And for those of you who have joined us, the format today, similar to what we normally do on a Lunch and Learn, is that we have a presentation which lasts about 40 minutes approximately, followed by a Q&A session. Some of you have already directly texted us, emailed us, and provided us with some questions. Some of them might get answered during the presentation. If not, please know that we're committed to getting to all the questions that we are receiving by the end of this 1 hour. And if you have a question during the presentation, please feel free to utilize the chat function. My eyes and that of my team members are on the questions that are coming in, and we are committed to getting to them. So on that note, it is my great pleasure to move and pass this Lunch and Learn over to you, Kiersten.
Thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to be here and to collaborate with the Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce. As you said, with that lovely glowing introduction, my name is Kiersten Smith. My pronouns are she, her, and I am here on behalf of the Ontario Corporate Training Centre, OCTC, an exciting project committed to transforming workplaces through disability inclusive hiring. As stated, our session will be approximately 40 minutes today, and we will be providing opportunities for discussion and Q&A. If at any time you need us to repeat something, slow down, or anything else to help you participate, please let us know. You can turn on your microphone or type in the chat, and we will ensure we get to those questions or comments. So we have an exciting agenda prepared to provide you with valuable insights into the Ontario Corporate Training Centre, OCTC. So let's take a quick look at what we have in store for you. First, we'll learn more about the OCTC mission and vision with a quick overview. Then we'll discuss the labor market and disability inclusion today and how that can impact your business's hiring and retention needs. We'll go over further information on OCTC, the benefits, and how your business could engage. And then we'll have time for questions. I don't need to go over our introductions as they were so generously provided earlier. So we'll dive right in. The Ontario Corporate Training Centre is a province-wide project aimed to provide research-informed training, resources, and services to businesses across Ontario. Supported by the Ontario Disability Employment Network, ODEN, and funded by the Government of Canada, this project will foster strengths-based collaborations and transform the employment landscape for people who have a disability. Together, we envision an inclusive and accessible Ontario where every person, regardless of their abilities, has equal access to meaningful employment opportunities. And for those who may not know, ODEN is a network of employment service providers dedicated to increase employment opportunities for people who have a disability. Employment service providers are agencies that specialize in connecting a pool of qualified job seekers to meaningful employment. So before we dive into looking at disability in Canada, let's briefly take a look at some of the current challenges affecting the Ontario labor market. Some of the highlighted challenges forecasted by the Ontario Chamber of Commerce for 2025 include ongoing economic uncertainty that will continue to affect the economy, consumer spending, and development. Productivity, which has fallen below pre-pandemic levels, and that downward turn is expected to continue into 2025. And those experiencing or expecting labor shortages in their sector identify the lack of available skilled workers, 58%, and challenges in attracting and retaining talent at 56% as the main causes. A significant percentage of businesses, 42%, also believe the retirement of experienced employees to be a primary reason for the shortages now and in the future. So to navigate and withstand these challenges, one of the core strategies of the Ontario Chamber of Commerce that they recommend for businesses is to invest in their people, talent, and skilled workforce. It has been shown that businesses who follow these type of recommendations and invest in becoming more inclusive businesses grow profits up to 3 times faster than that of their competitors, according to Gartner HR, formerly the Corporate Leadership Council. And by participating in the OCTC project, businesses can take meaningful steps towards investing in their workforce and strengthening their long-term resilience. We would like you to reflect on your disability inclusion journey at this time. Are you intentionally including disability inclusion in your DEI strategy? If you choose, you can share in the chat. You're also welcome to reflect on that on your own privately. Disability inclusion is an important component of diversity, equity, and inclusion, otherwise known as DEI. So DEI needs to include disability because it is intersectional across all aspects of identity and can affect anyone at any time in their lives. Now, let's take a look at a slide from our online module, People Who Have a Disability, the Facts. And this slide highlights 5 key facts about disability in Canada. Understanding the current landscape is essential when discussing disability inclusion. More than 1 in 4 Canadians, that's 27%, over the age of 15, self-identify as having a disability. This means that disability is already a part of your workplace, whether visible or not. It is also critical to recognize that 850,000 Canadians with disabilities are unemployed, despite being ready, willing, and able to work. So this represents a significant untapped talent pool that could help address labor shortages and meet your business's workplace needs. And beyond addressing labor shortages, inclusion is a proven business strategy. Highly inclusive businesses are 120% more likely to meet their financial targets, demonstrating that investing in disability inclusion is a smart business strategy. I'm curious for you to reflect on what you think the 2 greatest barriers experienced by people who have a disability are when accessing the workforce. Feel free to share in the chat if you have any insights or thoughts about what those 2 greatest barriers might be. So
Ryan has shared in the chat accessible workspaces.
Accessible workspaces, absolutely. The physical environment would be a big barrier and does need to be addressed. Thank you for that. So from the research, we know that the two greatest barriers are based on myths regarding disability inclusive hiring, such as underestimating their capability or overestimating the accommodations required, and employers' fear of the unknown. Let's go over some information about disability in the workplace. A survey by the Valuable 500 found that only 3% of business leaders openly discuss their disability or primary caregiving role in their organization. You do not need to share this, but we would like you to think about whether or not you have had these conversations with your teams, if you have disclosed, and why or why not. The same study found that 46% of employers in Canada do not report on the number of employees with a disability. According to the 2023 Ontario Economic Report, only 44% of organizations have a DEI strategy that prioritizes accessibility. And while that same report identified 78% of employers agree that mental health is important to their organization's success, only 37% of employers had a formal strategy to support employees' mental health. We encourage you at this time to reflect on your own personal experience of disability in your workplace. Does your organization have reporting on people who have a disability and accommodations in place? Do you have a DEI strategy that includes disability and mental health? A 2020 survey found that 70% of job seekers want to work for a company that demonstrates its commitment to DEI, making that employer, that business, an employer of choice. We're going to share a slide from one of our online learning modules about visible and invisible disabilities. When we think of disability, we often default to a disability we can see. However, many disabilities are invisible, including mental health disorders. For this reason, we have included information about what mental health is and information for those who may need to access mental health assistance right into the learning module. When it comes to disability inclusive hiring, what key challenges do you experience, if any? Feel free to share in the chat or reflect to yourself. So some options may include attracting and accessing talent, inclusive interviewing and accommodations, inclusive onboarding and performance management, or internal knowledge and understanding of disability. OCTC has a number of services and resources that can support across these specific areas that I will go over in the following slides. But first, we want to share with you 4 ways that you can get started. Here at OCTC, we like to view disability inclusion as a journey. And while compliance is an important part of accessibility, fostering a truly inclusive workforce is an evolution of steps over time. To get started on your journey, here are some items to consider depending on which challenges your business is experiencing. So first, learn about the myths and misconceptions around disability. If you don't have a lot of experience with disability, consult with an external DEI professional who can help raise your disability confidence level and take the first steps on the disability inclusive hiring journey. If finding and accessing qualified candidates for your roles from the disability talent pool is a challenge, building a recruitment relationship with a local employment service provider is a great place to start. Review your job postings for inclusivity. Beyond including an accessibility statement, there are a number of ways you can ensure that your postings do not pose invisible barriers that can deter people who have disabilities from applying. And employee retention is a journey that begins on the first day of work. And by scheduling regular check-ins with your teams, you can provide ongoing support throughout your employee's career with you. If you need any support exploring these four tactics, pardon me, and more to inform and transform your workplace into a disability inclusive environment, there are a variety of ways OCTC can help. So first, learn. OCTC offers sector and role-specific e-learning modules to increase your business's disability awareness and confidence. And we'll go over those a little more in depth shortly. Discover. There are a variety of ways OCTC can support you through our enhanced services, depending on your business's need and stage within the disability inclusion journey. These include services like inclusive job posting audits, interview coaching, and so much more. And these services are available to businesses looking to continue their journey after completing the learning modules. Access. So businesses that qualify to partake in the enhanced services will also gain access to a resource library of curated materials and toolkits for specific equity-deserving populations, including but not limited to 2S LGBTQIA+, Indigenous, youth, and other equity-deserving groups. And finally, formalize. Partaking in the learning modules and the services, should you choose, are a great way to publicly demonstrate your commitment to disability inclusion and position yourself as an employer of choice. For this, there's our co-branding opportunities and a logo that can be added to your website and ours upon consultation. This also includes participating in Light It Up for NDEAM on the third Thursday of October, where cities, monuments, and businesses light up in purple to in recognition of National Disability Employment Awareness Month. In 2024, over 800 locations in almost 200 communities across Canada participated. And this can include landmarks, bridges, local businesses, and much more. As mentioned earlier in our overview, the Ontario Corporate Training Centre is a province-wide project running until 2016, supported by the Ontario Disability Employment Network and funded by the Government of Canada. The aim of OCTC is to provide research-driven learning, services, and resources to businesses in manufacturing, skilled trades, tourism, and healthcare across Ontario to increase disability inclusion. At the core of OCTC is our data-driven approach to developing and delivering the right learning and supports to businesses and measuring the impact over time against disability inclusion targets, included but not limited to increasing the number of hires who identify as having a disability. There is no cost to a business to partake in the project should they qualify. However, all businesses must fall within our 4 sectors and commit to the term of the project by providing ongoing reporting. Now, for those businesses outside of the scope of OCTC's focus sectors, the Ontario Disability Employment Network, ODEN, is a province-wide organization that brings together businesses and employment service providers to increase employment opportunities for job seekers who have a disability. Businesses ODEN has worked with also include the CNE, Chorus, and Michaels. And OCTC is currently working with businesses including Artistry by Michaels, Erie Shores Healthcare, Tourism Hamilton, and Windsor Family Health Team. The Ontario Corporate Training Centre offers 5 online self-directed learning modules designed to increase awareness and confidence at all levels of the business. These learning modules are approximately 30 minutes in length, available in French and English, with tangible outcomes for different levels of staff, including general learning, coworkers and staff teams, managers and supervisors, human resources, and executive leadership. Content and materials will educate employees and employers on disability awareness, inclusion, and accessibility promising practices. These resources promote confidence, understanding, and strategies for creating an inclusive workplace. As I mentioned, we also offer enhanced services for businesses, and each service is tailored to meet the individual employer's needs and suit where they're at in their disability inclusion journey. These include recruitment planning, which involves supporting the development of a strategic recruitment plan that includes strategies for attracting and hiring people with a disability. Online or traditional hiring portal assessments assess a business's online or traditional hiring portals with recommendations for enhancing inclusive practices. Jobsability Access, Jobsability is an AI-driven virtual platform that connects job seekers who have a disability to employers, and employers can post jobs and search potential candidates that meet their hiring needs. This service has limited spots available, which is assessed on a case-by-case basis. We also offer organizational and/or human resource policies and procedures assessments. This service involves an evaluation of a business's policies and procedures with tailored recommendations. Job posting and job description review and recommendation to ensure that they are assessed with recommendations to increase accessibility and attract a diverse pool of candidates, including those who have a disability. Resource library access to a curated library of resources and toolkits for businesses, including equity-deserving populations and special topic areas. We also provide relationship building with local employment service providers, which includes introductions to ESPs with pools of qualified candidates who have a disability that are relevant to the hiring needs of the employer. Relationship and coordination and management of that relationship with local employment service providers, which involves ongoing support and coordination to ensure effective collaboration between businesses and ESPs. And inclusive interviews, which provides businesses with coaching and training on conducting inclusive interviews that consider the unique needs and skills of candidates who have a disability. And this service helps employers create a welcoming, accommodating, and inclusive interview process. Should your business be interested in learning more about how OCTC can support you on your disability inclusion journey, here are the steps to collaboration. So first, connect with one of our teams to get started. If you scan the QR code on your screen, you can book a meeting with me. During this meeting, you will select the number of learning modules that you want for your staff. You'll then be provided with an engagement letter to sign that states the number of licenses that your team will require. And then once a month, you and your trainer will connect to discuss the impact of the project on your business and explore further supports that you may need and discuss anything that has come up since your teams have engaged with the training. I would like to thank you so much for your time today. I would now like to open up the floor to any questions, and we'd be happy to answer those.
Kiersten, thank you so very much for the overview. I think it's really, really helpful to have seen and presented the services that you actually offer, which can be so helpful to so many of our members. So I really appreciate Appreciate the overview. We've had a couple of questions that have come forward, so I'm going to tap into them, and then I'm also at the same time going to take a look at the chat function to see if there's any additional ones that are coming forward. One of the ones, and I thought this was quite an interesting one actually, was regarding actually exploring universal design as a strategic advantage, not just in accommodation. And the question was, how can inclusive design, both digitally and physically, actually serve not just employees with disabilities, but the broader workforce as a whole? And so I thought it was a very interesting way to looking at it as being one step in preparation for being and creating an inclusive work environment. So it's really looking at that universal design as being a strategic advantage for everyone on the team.
I think that's a wonderful question, Mishka. I think that really shifts the conversation from singling out individuals in an organization or addressing very specific accommodations, which is still very important, but it really looks at providing opportunities for your entire team to be successful and recognizing that it is one of the few equity deserving populations that you can become a part of at any time. At any point in time, any person on your team can have a disability, whether temporary, episodic, or permanent. And creating an opportunity around universal design really ensures that there is equity across the entire organization, and it removes barriers for any and all employees to work in ways that work for them, that remove any barriers, and just really allow your teams to thrive and work in ways that are best for them without any of those unintended barriers in place.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think it's also really interesting from the person who asked the question to not only ever look at our physical space that we have, but also take a look at our digital one. And especially when we are considering where people are working, how we're interacting today, even you and I, a couple of years back, we would have sat in the same room with people around us. And here we are on Zoom and including like this digital format, a different format in communication. I'm also actually reminded of what it means to people who are working out of their home office at the same time. And I was wondering, do you offer any insight on that in that aspect, as people likely have a number of questions?
We absolutely do. We know from the research that creating hybrid or work from home opportunities really opens up the possibilities of employment for people with disabilities,
Yes.
as well as other employees for other reasons. It is really important to look at that digital space and what tools are available or what modifications can be made. And one of the things that we can do and we do with OCTC is have those discussions with the business about what it would mean to create those hybrid or work from home opportunities, how that can be done, how we can decrease those barriers, to really just allow multiple opportunities and multiple possibilities for respecting how people work and how they need to work and what works best for them. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. It's not just the physical space, because as I said, we tend to default to visible or physical disabilities, but
Yes.
we're often not considering those hidden disabilities, episodic disabilities, chronic health, pain, mobility, those types of things that could be really well supported with better digital tools, with work from home opportunities, and really assessing more than just that physical space.
And you're so right. When I prepared the opening kind of remarks for this Lunch and Learn, and I looked at how many people have disabilities or identify themselves without us knowing that they have a disability. When we look at a workforce of 22% or 6.2 Canadians across the country, that is significant. And we most definitely can't identify, don't have an understanding of it and the depths of understanding that is needed to really make it right and be inclusive in the workplace. There is another question that has come forward, and I also, it's kind of along the same line. When we're looking at digital and physical environment, and in this particular case, they're looking at what role can suppliers customers, or any external partners play in supporting or challenging a company's disability and inclusion efforts? And I thought it was really looking at a much wider ecosystem, an ecosystem responsibility in moving this conversation forward beyond just the internal practices that we can put in place, but really looking at on a broader scale. And I was wondering if you can assist, or how you could assist businesses that are looking at it on that broader scale, not inward only, but also externally.
One of the best places to start is with education.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
And many people have not had the education, the training, have access to resources to truly understand what disability looks like, what disability encompasses, how it affects people, how that would look in a workplace. And it's really important to make sure that we are taking proactive measures to educate ourselves in what that looks like. The vast majority of people are somehow connected to the disability community, whether it's themselves, their children, their colleagues, somebody at their local play group, or a family member. We're all connected to that. So the first step is absolutely education and training. In all of our modules, we always go over what disability is, what types of disabilities they are, what the current landscape looks like in depth, as a really great starting point to ensure that we all have the same information. And then we build on that. It's important for businesses and people in general to recognize that there is a strategic advantage to hiring people with disabilities, to making your business more inclusive. And we have multiple case studies to show that that also increases profit, productivity, that people want to support a business that aligns with their values, that they want to support a business that is disability inclusive. And the more that people are able to educate themselves and to learn and be open-minded and to have these conversations, with so few business leaders actually having these conversations with their teams, it really needs to start from the top to set the tone in the organization that this is something important to talk about, recognize, and take actionable steps to move that conversation forward.
Yeah. I am so certain that the individuals that have joined today's Lunch and Learn are interested in shaping their policy, their training manuals, their decision-making beyond any consultation, and really creating an inclusive environment. For those individuals that are interested in this, for those organizations, how can they meaningfully engage people with lived experience of disability in shaping those policies, and shaping that training, and shaping that decision-making, so that we really encourage people, create an environment of co-creation, and that challenges tokenism from another angle, and is really creating and making a difference?
I really appreciate that you brought that up. One of the biggest learnings and takeaways from a lot of our training is to ask the person.
Yeah.
The person with the disability has the lived experience. They have the knowledge. They are the ones who should be meaningfully contributing to that conversation. However, the challenge is that, many people don't disclose within their organization. There is a lot of stigma and bias and misinformation and stereotypes around what disability looks like in the workplace. And it's really important that an organization begins to shift their culture and really invest in that training and education, and demonstrate to their teams that this is something of value, that this is important to them, that when they go and ask, and perhaps start an ERG, an employee resource group around disability inclusion, or start some kind of conversations or focus groups within the organization, that you are creating a safe environment for that disclosure and for those honest conversations. Because unless that culture shift has begun to take place, people might be hesitant to bring their ideas to the table, to disclose information about their own disability status because they're concerned with what the organization is going to do with that information and whether or not it's going to be viewed as a checkbox or as tokenism. And it's really about shifting to that entire company culture and then setting up those ERGs and really facilitating discussions that are able to be open and honest and where they can then see actions taken by the organization based on that feedback. And once I think people see that, they will be able to trust in the process more and really share their lived experience and contribute to making workplaces more accessible and inclusive.
Fully agree with you, Kiersten. Thank you so very much. One of our participants here today is asking the question, and it's around our conversation that we've been having around stigma. Can you share any tips for working with employees who have a mental health concern but are worried about confidentiality? How much disclosure is needed for the employer? And I think this is a really sensitive issue because some people feel more confident about it, about sharing it, are very open about it, whereas others are more hesitant. And there is and can be stigma around it. We don't know how other people experience it, hear it, and move forward with that. So the question is, any tips for working with employees who have mental health concerns but are worried about confidentiality? How much disclosure is needed for the employer?
Disclosure is a very personal choice, and needs to be respected as such because there is that stigma, because there is that bias. Ensuring that you are providing mental health resources, information, training to all of your staff and teams, and making it a priority in your organization might encourage someone to disclose further, but it is the amount that is comfortable for you. It is the amount of disclosure that is comfortable for that individual. As to what is needed, what type of accommodations are needed. For anyone with any kind of disability, if they are unsure how to ask for accommodations, or more specifically, what accommodations they might need and how to begin that conversation, there's a wonderful tool from the Job Accommodation Network, JAN. It's called the JDAP tool, and it allows somebody to do a little brief self-assessment, answer some questions, and it makes recommendations on what accommodations might be beneficial to that individual. But it really, again, it goes back to that idea of creating that workplace culture where it does feel safe to disclose. And there are open, honest conversations from leadership and from decision makers in that organization to show that, that they are not stigmatizing somebody with a mental health disorder, that they are not stigmatizing people with who have a disability, and really setting the tone for those conversations. So it really just depends on the individual. It really needs to be respected on an individual basis, and there absolutely needs to be confidentiality in that process, that information is not shared with anybody because it is so deeply personal.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. And it is a really sensitive issue about what to share and what comfortable. And I'm sure that people who are experiencing and are receiving help with the issues that they are experiencing will also actually likely be able to draw on their expertise to help them too. But I wanted to just thank your colleague Liz here, who has actually been sharing a couple of tools that are available to our participants in our chat function. If you're unable to see those tools, just let us know and we'll include them with the package that we send out afterwards to all participants. So there are a few tools and they look like they're extraordinary and they will be very helpful to individuals. Kiersten, you and I are here, we're talking, we are utilizing language to speak about this issue. And there's a question that has come forward about that. What role does inclusive language play in shaping workplace culture? And how can businesses foster shared understanding of respectful communication. And that's really delicate. It's a real delicate issue, because I think a lot of people are trying their best as in every day to pay attention to their language and to influence the workplace culture that they have, to create an environment of inclusivity. But likely we also are all failing at it too at the same time. So the role of inclusive language, some tools that maybe help shape workplace culture on that end of it, to just make sure that we have a really respectful communication. And that could likely be verbal, it could be written as well. What are some of the elements that maybe you can speak to?
Absolutely, that is a wonderful point. First and foremost, it's really important to recognize that we're all going to make mistakes.
Yes.
We're going to make mistakes. That is okay. Disability inclusion is a journey. It is a constant learning. Our language evolves. It changes, and it's changing rapidly across various topics and, certain language, especially around any type of DEI or inclusion subject matter. So know that you're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. When we know better, we do better. So when you learn, accept the feedback and, try to incorporate that. So a couple of tips that we could recommend is, first, ask the person and recognize when you get feedback that it's just somebody, sharing with you their experience, and to respect the language that they use or the terms that feel comfortable for that individual. In all of our training modules, we actually go through real-world scenarios based on lived experience of people with disabilities. And they share, we'll share a scenario and give possible options for how somebody might communicate with that individual based on the circumstances, and then also explain the unintended consequences of some of our responses. Because many people speak in a very well-meaning manner. We don't mean to offend. We're not trying to be offensive or inappropriate, but we're going to make a mistake, and we may not understand what mistake we've made or why that or how that impacts a person. So we do make sure that we cover that. It's also important to make sure that communications are available in multiple formats. Written, verbal, emails, texts, and ask your colleagues, ask your team members, how do they like to communicate? What is their communication preferences? Some people, I know I am a person who really thoroughly enjoys written instructions with high degrees of detail. Other people prefer a verbal direction or verbal communication. Things like being in a meeting and whether or not we're on a Zoom meeting and we're face to face, or, we have our cameras on. More specifically, do we have our cameras on or do we have our cameras off? Are we using captioning in meetings? Are we using any accessible tools? We have to consider, what works for each individual and ask, learn, know that you will make mistakes, and grow.
Excellent. Listen, thank you so very much. And I think that's absolutely true. We have to actually say that we're on this journey together. And when we're both committed to the same goals or outcomes that we want to see, we likely approach it differently. The foundation is the same. And again, I wanted to just make everyone aware here that Kiersten's colleague Liz is sharing some really, really good tools, especially related to language, inclusive language, in the chat function, and we'll make sure to share them afterwards as well. But it's really, really helpful. There is one last question that has come forward, and this is an interesting one because it's almost prompts a deeper, more nuanced understanding of disability beyond a single issue lens that is there. And this is really looking at how do intersectionality and multiple identities that we have. We're more than one identity. We're more than the race, the gender, the age, and other things that shape the experience of disability in the workplace. And how should inclusion strategies reflect that? And I can see that for an employer of a small business, for example, with limited resources, might be a difficult challenge there, because it is complex and likely the needs are different, dependent on the multiple identities that we all hold, that we all have as individuals. How can that, what tools are available to them? How should inclusion strategies reflect in the approaches that we're taking within a workplace?
It's a great question. First and foremost, it's important to recognize that it is intersectional. We all show up with multiple layers to our identities, whether that is, ethnicity, privilege, gender, all of those different facets of who we are layered and nuanced. And that my experience showing up in a room, the way that I present as a Caucasian, female presenting, traditionally feminine person who also has an invisible disability is going to be very different than somebody who is of a visible minority or somebody who uses a mobility device, and all of those additional layers to who we are. So just knowing that it's even there to begin with is a wonderful first step, and recognizing that that is going to shape somebody's experience in different ways than yours. To be open-minded, to listen to your team members and colleagues and trust that they know their lived experience, that they know how things impact them, and to trust their stories and what they share with you, and not challenge somebody else's experience. To ask and be inquisitive is wonderful, but to shut down or to dismiss somebody else's experience does not help anybody in that room, does not help anybody learn in that space. There are, again, in our trainings, we always approach with intersectionality. We speak specifically to it in all of our training, why that's important, why it's important to recognize that, and what intersectionality is and what that looks like. And then we also have a curated toolkit of resources specifically addressing, those different layers. So whether somebody's from a rural background, if somebody is a newcomer to Canada, if somebody is 2S LGBTQIA+, we have resources, research, and information available to businesses who sign on to the project to make sure that they are aware and knowledgeable. And if they don't know, if we don't have the resource, if they don't know where to get it, we can be that resource and that link to go find it with our amazing network, and with the abilities that we have to find, some of the latest research or information around that. And finally, just open yourself up to the conversation and go to spaces, go meet with people who are different than you are in a variety of ways, and have those conversations and ask them about their experience. And again, trust their knowledge and take that back, and really try to integrate that into your learning and the ways that you communicate with people.
Yeah, Kiersten, I am so glad that you have spent this last hour with us here with our members and businesses across Niagara, and actually especially in making everyone aware of the resources that you have available to that are accessible to our businesses and communities. That your insight is truly a wealth of knowledge. Usually what I do when I come towards the end of a lunch and learn, I give the presenter like a minute for closing comments in case you're sitting there and saying, oh, I wish I would have said that. I would have liked to reiterate that. So just for, would you like to give some closing comments as we're about to wrap up the webinar?
Absolutely. First and foremost, I do want to thank you. The Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce has been such an amazing supporter of our project and of disability inclusion in the workplace, and really getting the word out about what we do. I cannot thank you enough for that. It's been a pleasure. And my final thoughts, many businesses, when I've met with them, they've said, well, we can't hire people with disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know how to do that. That's too hard. We couldn't fathom that. And what I always share with people is 1 in 4 Canadians identify as having a disability. Look at your teams. Look at your coworkers. You already have people on your team who have a disability and could be better supported or retained or promoted, or, to have a better understanding, and that benefit isn't just for those employees who have a disability. It is going to be reflected in the entire business, so that every single member of your team can show up as who they are authentically and work in ways that best support how they like to work, how they need to work. And that is going to be the biggest benefit to you as an employer, to have engaged, enthusiastic, and dedicated team members. So just remember that, it is a group that you can belong to at any point in time, that you already have people on your teams. And the number one place to start is with education and learning and being open-minded to those conversations.
Yeah. Thank you so very much. Those were perfect closing comments, actually, and wrapping up this session. That was very informative. So, Kiersten, thank you very much for your insight. Liz, thank you so very much for sharing all these resources in our chat. I really have seen them all coming through, and they look incredible. So thank you to both of you for being with us. Thank you to the YMCA Niagara for their partnership in bringing these Lunch and Learns to life. For those of you who've joined us on May 27th, we're holding another Lunch and Learn. This one is all about a very different topic. It's all about sales, marketing, and advertising, and how to promote your business and how to attract new customers. But it's an important topic as well. If you have any topic suggestions or speakers that you wish to consider, or for us to consider for our Lunch and Learns lineup, please feel free to contact us at info@gncc.ca. And I wanted to thank you all for joining us today, and thank you all for your commitment to create an environment where we all feel like we belong. So thank you for that.